I work as an archaeologist, and I just found something disturbing. My name is Daniel Moore, and I've been an archaeologist for over 2 decades. I've worked on digs across the globe, uncovering pieces of history long forgotten by time. Every artifact, every site, tells a story. But not all stories should be unearthed. It started with a call from a colleague, Dr. Elena Torres, a brilliant historian and one of my oldest friends. She had been overseeing a dig in a remote part of Turkey, deep in the Anatolian plains. Elena had stumbled upon something she described as potentially groundbreaking. Her voice over the phone was trembling, but it wasn't just excitement. I sensed unease. She wanted me to join her team immediately, refusing to elaborate further. I was hesitant at first, but curiosity got the better of me. Within 48 hours, I was on a plane, heading into what I would later come to see as a nightmare. When I arrived, the camp was a hive of activity. Dozens of researchers and workers were bustling about, cataloging artifacts, analyzing soil samples, and documenting findings. Elena greeted me with a tight smile, her usual energy subdued. She led me to a tent where she had laid out the most recent discoveries: stone carvings, pottery fragments, and an oddly intact artifact that looked like a ceremonial dagger. The carvings immediately caught my attention. They depicted a spiral pattern encircled by symbols that didn't match any known language. The spiral was everywhere, etched into pottery, engraved on the dagger's hilt, and even painted on fragments of what might have been murals. Elena explained that the site appeared to predate most of the known ancient civilizations in the area, possibly even the Neolithic. What puzzled her was the sheer intricacy of the carvings and the lack of any connection to other known cultures. It was as if these people had emerged, fully formed, from nowhere. She handed me a fragment of a tablet that had been found deeper in the site. It was covered in the same symbols, arranged in a way that suggested a form of writing. I stared at it, mesmerized. Something about the pattern felt wrong. It wasn't just the unfamiliarity. It was the way the symbols seemed to shift subtly, almost imperceptibly, when I looked away and back again. That night, Elena and I stayed up late in her tent, trying to decode the symbols. She admitted that some of her team had already started experiencing strange dreams after spending long hours studying the artifacts. She laughed nervously, brushing it off as overwork, but her eyes betrayed her worry. The next morning, I joined the team at the main excavation site. It was a massive underground chamber, uncovered beneath layers of sediment. The structure was unlike anything I'd seen before, walls adorned with carvings that glowed faintly in the dim torchlight. At the center of the chamber was a large stone door, circular in shape, with the spiral pattern engraved deeply into its surface. The door was massive, at least 10 feet in diameter, and made from a type of stone that didn't match the geology of the area. The workers were reluctant to approach it. Several claimed they heard whispers when they got too close, soft voices speaking in a language they didn't understand. Others complained of dizziness or headaches. Despite their concerns, Elena was determined to open the door. She believed it would reveal the true purpose of the site. We spent days examining the carvings around the door, looking for clues on how to open it. The spiral pattern seemed to function as a sort of lock, but its mechanism eluded us. Then, one night, Elena came to me, wide-eyed and frantic. She had been reviewing the artifact catalog and noticed something. The ceremonial dagger, the one with the spiral on its hilt, appeared to fit perfectly into a recess at the center of the door. It was an oversight we should have caught earlier, but something about the site seemed to cloud our judgment. The next day, we decided to test her theory. When Elena inserted the dagger into the recess, the ground trembled. The spiral pattern on the door began to rotate, grinding against the stone with a deafening sound. The air grew heavy, and an unnatural chill swept through the chamber. As the door slid open, a foul stench wafted out, something ancient and rotten. Beyond the door was a vast, dark space. The torches barely illuminated the entrance, revealing only more carvings and a staircase descending into the earth. Elena, ever the explorer, insisted we go down. Against my better judgment, I followed. The staircase seemed endless, spiraling down into the abyss. The walls were covered in more of the glowing carvings, their light pulsating faintly, almost like a heartbeat. At the bottom, we found ourselves in a cavern unlike anything I had ever seen. The walls were lined with massive stone statues, each one depicting grotesque otherworldly figures, humanoid in shape but with features that defied reason. In the center of the cavern was a massive stone altar, surrounded by more of the spiral symbols. On the altar lay a skeletal figure, unnaturally long and twisted, its bones blackened and fused together as if by intense heat. Elena approached the altar, her flashlight trembling in her hand. As she drew closer, the carvings on the walls began to glow brighter, their pulsations quickening. That's when the whispers began. At first, they were faint, barely audible, but they grew louder, more insistent. They spoke in the same language as the symbols, their tone commanding and malevolent. Elena froze, her eyes wide with terror. I understand them," she whispered. Before I could respond, the skeletal figure on the altar began to move. Its jaw creaked open, releasing a guttural sound that reverberated through the cavern. The torches flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. What happened next is a blur. I remember running, the whispers chasing us, growing louder and more chaotic. I remember the ground shaking and the feeling of being watched by something vast and incomprehensible. Somehow, I made it back to the surface. Elena didn't. The workers abandoned the site that night, refusing to return. I tried to contact the authorities, but no one believed me. The site was eventually buried under a landslide, an event the locals claim was natural, though I know better. I still hear the whispers sometimes, in my dreams. They speak of things that shouldn't exist, of a world beyond ours where ancient, unfathomable entities dwell. I wish I had never answered Elena's call. Some things are meant to stay buried.